It's the highest point of downtown Knoxville. Summit Hill cuts through it, but in the early 1800s, it was nicknamed Gallows Hill. But it's what came out of that story is another story you won't believe.
Going My Way with Alan Williams. Brought to you by the Lawson Family Foundation, planting positive seeds for the future.
In the early 1800s, Gallows Hill was the highest point on the northern end of downtown Knoxville.
It was right up here. This is the Catholic Church, and here's the School for the Deaf, which was built in 1848, and that's what's now known as LMU Law School.
More than 150 years ago, it was the hanging hill, where criminals were sent to their death. But there's no known pictures of the hangings, all before cameras were invented. The last one was in the 1870s, when more than 10,000 people came to watch. One story, however, took hangings to another level, when some grading work uncovered human bones.
First thought, what are these? Are these old Indian bones or something? But they found out, no, that was the old cemetery for Gallows Hill. That's where they hanged the criminals that died there. There was one old timer who remembered the story of Dr. Stephen Foster, who was a real guy that we know about him. He actually was a professor at the university.
As the story goes, Foster did an experiment, presumably taken from Mary Shelley's book, written years earlier, called Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
I beg your pardon?
My name, it's pronounced Frankenstein.
Before electricity, batteries were invented. Foster made one and had a bizarre idea.
He borrowed this body of a healthy young man who had just been hanged, and he wanted to see if he could bring him back to life. They put him on what they call a fast wagon from the top of Gallows Hill down to the church, which is not very far, but especially with a horse, probably didn't take more than a minute. They unloaded him, put him in the church, and he didn't allow anybody to see what he was doing. He had the battery set up.
He took the body to what was the old Second Presbyterian Church downtown.
He had some electrodes, and he applied electrodes to this body of this recently deceased young man.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
And made him appear to breathe. He didn't know, apparently, that there were people out in the street who had boosted themselves up to look through the transom of the church to see what was going on in there. And they saw that he appeared to have breathed maybe 3 times. They thought that Dr. Foster had conquered death, and there was this great cheer in the streets.
As the story goes, Foster then had second thoughts about what he had done. Foster decided to drop the project entirely.
It's an old man remembering a story from 40 years earlier. That's the main source of that story. And we wouldn't consider that scientific proof, but Dr. Stephen Foster really was active at that time.
Whether it was conscience, worry of breaking the law, or fear, true or not, it makes for a great story passed on to generations in Knoxville. Going My Way, I'm Alan Williams. Driven by the belief that every life has equal value, the Lawson Family Foundation strives to make a difference for East Tennesseans. This week, we honor the Beardsley Community Farm. The organization works toward a healthy community, providing locally grown produce and resources for gardening for all ages. The Beardsley Community Farm and the Lawson Family Foundation, sowing seeds for the future.